Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Developing your company's talent and leadership pipeline can be an overwhelming task, but your burden is over. With ResultPal, you can use the power of practice to develop more leaders faster. Move onward and upward by going to resultpal.com/fast and getting a $750 performance package for free. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I am so excited because I have the chance to have somebody on the show that I really enjoy. He's someone who I look up to. I actually bounce ideas off of, a deep thinker, as well as a great sense of humor and a good overall being. And I don't get to see him very much because he lives halfway around the world. Warren Kennaugh was born and raised in Sydney, Australia, one of two boys. And as a youth, he loved pulling things apart. So his first degree was in mechanical engineering, where he specialized in the construction and repair of heavy earth-moving equipment. Having the need for more people contact, which is very un-engineer-like, he secured a sales position in the banking and finance industry where he successfully rose through the ranks over 9 years. Just when he was positioned to lead the bank's first ever national coaching practice, the organization restructured, and Warren saw it as his opportunity to strike out on his own. Since that fateful day in 1996, he's built his own consultancy firm focusing in on the human behavior of peak performance. Warren has worked with over 70 blue-chip large corporations and advised over 300 senior managers and elite teams. Warren's expertise is in the area of developing high performance, which has seen him take interim positions as head of sales effectiveness for a major bank and the director of coaching and facilitation for Melbourne Business School. In 2006, Warren was asked to work with the Australia Rugby Union in preparing the team for the Rugby World Cup for the 2007 and 2011 campaigns. His success on that project has since had him working at the highest levels in World Rugby, World Cricket, PGA Golf, Rugby League, and preparing the Australian equestrian team for the Rio Olympics. Warren's work enables an individual or team to easily identify the dynamics which limit their success, which permits behavioral changes, allowing them to achieve their goals. Warren currently lives in Sydney with his wife and daughter and has a passion of old-style film photography and is madly working away on his second book. Warren Kennaugh, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Absolutely, Jim. Great to be with you here today. Great to be with you on Hump Day.
Well, I've given our Legion a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you better?
Yeah, look, very much so. Look, I've absolutely had a passion for many years about what makes people tick. I suppose it's the engineering element from which I've come from. About if you understand how a building is built or a bridge is built, and then it's predictable how things are going to pan out as far as the structure goes, then how do people get results? There must be ways, there must be patterns, there must be paths of least resistance that people actually go through to get similar results a lot of the time, both for success and failure. So that's from my passion from a work perspective. No surprise it pulls over into other areas of my personal life, where you mentioned about the black and white photography, the art of taking a great photo, the art of developing a great print, and many hours in the dark room whiling time away. So some diversity in approach, but very much as we look at it, similar constants underneath that, similar foundations in my interests.
So, I mean, when you started talking about, the whole moving from the engineering piece and the very mechanical piece to the human behavior piece, you start having a big separation in I guess you'd say, the accuracy or the confidence levels of what you're going to get as an outcome of whatever you engineer. So if I am an engineer, I know that if I have certain inputs and if I construct those in a certain way, I'm going to get some pretty defined outputs. That doesn't happen with humans.
Look, the deeper that we know a human, the more predictable it does. I heard a great quote the other day from a quite famous psychologist, and the quote basically went, "Look, the more there is complexity, the easier it is to see the patterns. If we look at a building, if we stand back and look at a building, from ground level, there's a whole lot of complexities as the building goes up 30 levels or so. However, if we actually look at the diagram, we would actually see there's a fairly consistent approach to each level and how the building's built. Very, very similar with human behaviour. If you followed me around and watched me complete tasks, I would have my 4 or 5 default patterns of which I would go about it before I actually give up, before I either have a breakthrough or would actually give up. in some ways, Jim, I think there is no doubt there's certain complexity, but we're also quite predictable.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up. And so when you start thinking about what all of us have to contend with today, and is that we have so many things to do and only a finite amount of time to do them. However, we are working in some very similar patterns in the way that we go about our work. What needs to take place in order for us to really thrive?
Great question. I think there's three simple things that we need to do to really thrive. I think the first thing of all is to work out what default skills are we good at. Now, sometimes that takes a while for us to bump in and around to actually kind of work out. Sometimes it takes us, that might take us 10 or 20 years to work out exactly what we're kind of good at. So if I can give you an example, if you're a salesperson, so you're in sales and distribution, you love people contact, you're ambitious, you're goal-driven, you want to make a difference, you want to be recognised, you want a pat on the back, that's quite a different set of core skills than if you're an accountant. Now, where you want to be disciplined, where you want to be rigorous, where you probably want more time to yourself. I mean, it could be down to the introversion, extroversion. So I think first thing is we need to know that the things that I'm defaultly good at, what skills or industry do they best fit in? What role do they best fit in? There's no point in me if I need a whole pile of people contact deciding that I'm actually going to be an auditor and not speak to anyone. I will go insane. That won't do me any good. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing we need to know when I've got a bit of a ballpark area about what role I'm going to actually best perform in, that's defaultly easy for me, is to then look for an environment that supports the same values and beliefs that I do. Quite often we can actually see someone who's successful in one organisation move to another organisation and not deploy their excellence and skill. And they haven't lost their skills. On Friday afternoon when they were a high performer, they didn't lose the skills over the weekend to Monday where they're not feeling comfortable and not producing their best. Now, in that case, we see a lot of organisations who look at engagement, which is absolutely critically important. But if I don't fit with my manager, if my values and my beliefs and my motives don't actually fit with the organisation, then no amount of apples in the lunchroom or gym memberships is actually going to change that. You will not get peak performance out of me because I just don't feel comfortable. And the third thing around that is very much so about I need to understand enough about myself to know when I'm under stress and pressure, to what extent and what behaviours I'm going to overplay and potentially derail my reputation. So got the three things. Defaultly, the skills and talent I've got, which role does that actually best fit? Secondly, when I'm clear on the role, I need to be really hyper-vigilant around if I go into an organisation that believe the same things that I believe. And ideally, my direct manager, we've got a great alignment and we have the same beliefs. And thirdly, am I smart enough to actually know under stress and pressure the things I'm likely to overplay, so that I don't end up looking like a fool and ruining my reputation.
Wow. I mean, listen to you talk. I mean, while we were initially referring to the simplicity piece, it got complex pretty fast. And so I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. We have a lot more variables than I thought here. And, really, when you start thinking about a lot of these things, it does take a lot of effort. Even if we can get to the simplistic, we have to go through the effort. And we need energy, focus, like you were talking about, purpose, values, all of those things. And one of the things that we look at on the Fast Leader Show are quotes, because they can help supply us with a lot of that and help us, hopefully find some grounding, some energy so that we can move forward. Is there a quote or two that kind of stands out for you that you can share?
So there's certainly one that's in my mind and is a great reflection for me. And it was one of my previous bosses said to me that greatness is achieved by never being totally satisfied with the status quo. So there's always this tension about what else can be done, what else can be done, what else can be done. Looking at, how can we move things forward? How can be better? And I just think that's a wonderful quote about not resting on laurels, about not accepting how things are. Of course, if you take that quote and put it on steroids, then it's a problem because you're never happy with anything. But it's trying to find the balance about being in a steady, constant state of discontent to enable things to be moved forward and checking yourself and reflecting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Is they talk about several different studies associated with strengths can rapidly become weaknesses when they're
Yeah.
on hyperdrive or steroids, and then you have to definitely balance them and vet them to where that doesn't happen. So that's a great point.
I think you're so right. And I'm recently working with a gentleman at the moment. Gregarious, outgoing, really the centre of attention, or what we would describe as great leadership qualities. However, in states of stress and pressure, he over exemplifies those states, which actually makes him, which actually undermines his reputation, which draws too much attention to himself, which makes it about him, not about the team. So I think you're exactly right. It's such a fine line between actually kind of going, these are great, absolutely leadership traits, but in another context, they don't work. Another context, they don't work.
That's a great point. There's a lot of factors that can affect it. So I know, talking about your transition from being an engineer and working on heavy machinery and working with people and, working with a lot of teams in sport, as well as, corporate. I mean, you yourself have gone through a big transition. And with that, we've had humps that we have to get over when anybody experiences that. Is there a time that you can remember of a hump that you had to get over that kind of helped you get set in a better direction? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, look, very much so. And look, I would say the hump that I need to get over, when I went into my own consultancy was a very big deal. There was uncertainty about whether it was going to work. I wasn't totally unhappy in a corporate environment. But it was an opportunity for me to do more of what I wanted to do. I had some of it in the corporate role, but it was an opportunity for me to do more. So I had questions about whether it was going to work, whether I could actually add value to senior leaders, whether if I struck out on my own that I could build a sustainable practice. So there were some real questions of, I suppose, self-doubt that actually challenged me at that point in time. As I mentioned, I wasn't just happy working in a corporate environment, but doing more of what I wanted really mattered to me. It wasn't enough just to do it every now and then. I wanted to make my life about actually understanding how people worked, and not everyone wants to know that themselves. So finding people who actually have a interest in that themselves that I could actually work with. So the challenges about me striking out my own business, it took time, it took effort to build up momentum and gain a reputation. It took far much more time and effort than I actually thought. And I've been blessed at the moment to do the stuff that I love. And I think after about 19 years, I think I can comfortably say I probably won't go back to banking and finance.
Let's hope not, because you're doing some really good work. That's for sure. Okay. So, there's a couple things that stood out, as you were sharing that story, and thanks for sharing it, but you talked about that uncertainty piece.
Yeah.
And I mean, how were you able to deal with that uncertainty piece and get over that hump? Because a lot of times people hit that part and then they just go back because there's security in that. So how did you push past?
Look, I suppose in some ways I was a bit naive about the effort that would be required. So that was absolutely a blessing, to be honest with you. I set some goals around the things that I needed to do to actually achieve over a 6 and 12 month period. And I'd love to say I shot the lights out on the goals. I actually didn't. I actually made it over the line. And but by that time, I'd gone from the fear of concern to more so about, well, I know it's not where I need to be, but I'm actually enjoying this more. So there was an interesting change in currency for me as I went along that. And that gave me enough to actually push through. I mean, it would have been easy to say, listen, I made enough to buy a Maserati in a small island in the first 12 months. And that was the reason why I kept going. But it wasn't the case. I made enough to get by. And then I actually kind of said, well, would I swap out money and certainty and predictability to go back and do stuff that I don't enjoy doing as much? And that was an interesting choice point for me to kind of go, well, now I don't want to do this. I can keep going at this, and if I start to develop a bit of momentum, I'm going to be way in front, both from my own satisfaction, mainly from my own satisfaction, but as well as way in front, financially from where I was. So. I said to my wife, about 18 months ago, I said, I think I'm getting more comfortable with the uncertainty, more comfortable with the uncomfortability. it never disappears. I strike out on a new project now, and I face the same questions about myself that I faced when I struck out for the first time. So the irony is I don't get too far away from my own hump, but I get to know it better, and I'm slightly better at managing it better. I wouldn't suggest that Harvard come and do a case on how I manage it, but I think I'm getting a little bit better at managing it, Jim.
No, I think that's a great point, is that in and of itself, in our decision-making process and the humps that we run into, there's habits in that. And so it's best for us to figure out a habit by which we get over it. Absolutely. Because once we get over it that first time, needless to say, the second time it becomes easier.
Without going back to the engineering analogy too much, but the hump on level 1 in the building is probably a similar hump on level 10. And so, I've come to accept that the things that that push me into uncertainty and doubt in small things also do it in large things. So in some way, there's a familiarity in the uncertainty, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. So I know, because we've talked on and off for quite a while. I mean, we had the opportunity of meeting here in the States at a workshop on influence and persuasion, and those were, I'm still glad that we've been able to keep in touch. But
absolutely,
if you were to think about all of the things that you have on your plate, and I know there's several, including your daughter coming of age, if you were to look at everything you have on your plate, what would you say are some of the goals that you want to reach soon?
Oh, really great question. So I'd look, obviously from a family perspective, with daughter coming of age, I'd like to see her transition nicely into, she's moving from junior school into high school. That's quite important. We've got some personal projects that we're kind of working on, relating to the house that we live in. So we've got a big renovation project starting there. I've just finished one book. I've started the second, and we'll start a third in the new year. So I'm passionate about see if I can get my message out to people just beyond the people that I connect with, and really to some degree just to continue to do the work that I love to do. To continue to do the work with with sports people, continue to do the work with corporate people. And also, balance that with my photography. So, not quite any plans at the moment to build a practice on the moon or to do anything like that. But I suppose to make small adjustments to the stuff that I've actually kind of got in place at the moment. It's interesting for me. I tend not to have big goals, but I tend to follow my nose and make adjustments as I kind of go along. And more from a perspective of, wow, wouldn't that be interesting to do that? And then I go out and see if that's possible and see if that's available and see if I can make that work. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But it's more an inquiring mind, I suppose. It actually gets me into things because it'd be fun, because I'd like to do it, and because I'm able to add some value.
Well, and the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Whether in the office or on the road, work with your community or coach to practice great behavior and produce great organizational results. Capture real-time behavior practice from competency-based development plans and invite feedback in an elegant and simple application. Take Top Performance Mobile by going to resultpal.com/fast and getting a $750 performance package for free. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Warren, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Warren Kennaugh, are you ready to Hoedown?
I sure am, Jim. Let's go.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
The challenge for me to do things differently than what I normally would. The same thing that I ask people to do, to look outside my own paradigm and look at other ways to do the things I existingly do.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
A couple of years ago, I did some work with a famous photographer by the name of Ralph Gibson, and Ralph said to me, unless you take on a really big project, you'll never know what you're capable of.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
You must follow your own path, take advice and listen, but make your own decisions.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
A strong team around me that gives me frank and honest and not always comfortable feedback.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners besides one of your own?
No, thank you, Jim. Thank you. The one I picked up at the moment, I'm just loving the read of at the moment, is a book called Team Genius. It provides really great insight into how teams think and how teams behave.
Okay, Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Warren Kennaugh. Okay, Warren, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you have been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take everything. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Jim, without a doubt, what I would take with me is to actually gain a really strong understanding of what I'm good at and where I fit. That would just make things a whole lot easier. It would save a whole lot of bumping around and a whole lot of things, me trying things that kind of didn't work. So if I could take back 25 years to kind of work out what I'm good at, which I'm fairly close to now, and stick to my knitting, that would be really kind of great.
Warren, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yes, Jim, they can connect with me on the website through warrenkennaugh.com, so WARRENKENNAUGH.com. And I look forward to, hearing thoughts and being challenged by questions and gaining some insights from your Fast Leader listeners.
Warren Kennaugh, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Woo-hoo! Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.